All right, India is once again at the G20 high table. She steps in as a stabilizing force amid a highly volatile global geopolitical climate. Prime Minister Modi is positioned to speak for the global south even as US President Donald Trump and his team boycott this year's leadership sessions. At the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will outline India's views on the G20 agenda. Prime Minister Modi is also scheduled to speak in all three sessions based on the theme of solidarity, equality and sustainability. A strong emphasis on countering terrorism is also anticipated. India has consistently pushed G20 members to act collectively against countries that support or finance extremist networks. Prime Minister Modi is likely to urge the grouping to adopt a firm position on terrorism in the joint declaration. This year's summit continues the trend of global South leadership, marking the fourth consecutive G20 hosted by a developing country. South Africa has placed issues such as debt relief, poverty reduction and access to technology at the forefront of its agenda. India is expected to push for stronger South-South cooperation, including through the India-Brazil-South Africa Forum. On the sidelines of the summit, Prime Minister will also meet various world leaders to discuss matters related to trade, energy and security. Interestingly, the broader political mood surrounding the Johannesburg summit remains mixed, but South Africa as host and chair has delivered some notable wins, advancing an agenda that strongly resonates with emerging Asian economies, including India, China and Indonesia. A total of 42 countries are participating, with leaders from 19 G20 nations and key guests from across Asia, Africa and the Caribbean. All this is unfolding against sharper geopolitical currents, from China-Japan tensions in the Indo-Pacific to the firm France and UK stance on Russia over Ukraine. South Africa says its G20 presidency is ultimately a call to bridge the divide between the global north and the global south and to refocus global decision-making on the priorities of the developing world. Ambassador Professor Anil Suklal, who is a South African High Commissioner to India, joins us with more insight. Ambassador Suklal, thank you so much for joining in on CNN News 18. Let's begin with the theme of G20 presidency, which, as we all know, is being hosted by South Africa. Having said that, shed more light on why it's so pivotal, the theme of sustainability, solidarity, equality.
Well, I think if you look at the theme that South Africa has chosen for our presidency, it fits in with previous themes. It builds on that. And perhaps the need of the hour in terms of what's happening globally at the present time. And we saw this accelerate post-COVID. The world is becoming more divided. The fault lines between the global north and south is not getting narrower, they're getting wider. So what the world needs at the present time in order to address our collective challenges is to work in tandem with each other. That's why we need global solidarity. We don't have that.
Take us through the role that India and South Africa both have played, and Prime Minister Modi has played in sort of mainstreaming Africa to G20, and how can both the countries help in aiding each other in this very deeply divided geopolitical climate?
Well, I think firstly we must again express our gratitude to Prime Minister Modi and India for having mainstreamed Africa during your presidency in 2023. It's unfortunate it took 18 summits for the African Union to become a full member, while the European Union from the outset was a full member. And had it not been for the initiative of India during your presidency, we are not sure whether the African Union would be around the table when the G20 convenes in South Africa shortly. So I think India has demonstrated that we have a long historical relationship between Africa and India. Late Prime Minister Nehru spoke of Asia and Africa as being sister continents, and the development in terms of bringing the African Union as a full member into the G20 on the initiative of India is something the whole of the African continent will always remember. it's there for the historical books.
Let's come to the elephant in the room. Donald Trump, the US president, saying that he will be boycotting, or rather US will be boycotting the G20 because it's happening in South Africa, and they are a country which is an abuser of human rights. He's accused South Africa of orchestrating a genocide. Of course, Cyril Ramaphosa has also come back to that, saying that it is the US loss and that it's high time to call on this politics of boycott. I'd like your thoughts.
Well, it's very unfortunate. We have the deepest respect for the USA. We have strong relationship and have always had strong relationship with the USA. And it's unfortunate that they will not be at the table at the Johannesburg Summit. I think it's a major opportunity lost for the leading global economic power to be party to a very historic meeting that's taking place for the first time on the African continent, and at a time when the world needs solidarity of all of the leaders, irrespective of our differences, to come together and have an opportunity to talk to each other. It is ironical that the USA today wants to speak to countries that they have for a long time isolated, be it North Korea, be it Russia. The current president is very keen to meet with these countries because he says it's important that they speak to each other. Now, likewise, as South Africa, based on our own experience, that it is through dialogue, through exchange of views, that we can address our common challenges. By boycotting the meeting, you are actually the loser in terms of the opportunity you would have had to discuss issues that you may think is happening in South Africa. And as President Ramaphosa rightfully said when he visited the White House in May this year, that all of these allegations being made against South Africa, they are all false allegations. There's no evidence. And it's unfortunate that President Trump has never visited Africa. During his first term as president and now during his second term, he would have had the opportunity to go and experience Africa firsthand and see for himself all of these accusations being made against South Africa.